What's going on, guys? It's Seth back with another Defense Wins Fantasy, part of the Fantasy-Holics Podcast Network. As you can tell, my voice is not 100%, but we're season ready, man. We got to keep it going. We got to push through. And speaking about being season ready, apparently Jason Pierre-Paul is ready to make another statement on the gridiron. He signed a one-year deal with the Baltimore Ravens this week. Now, he's been, even in his older age, has been a heck of an IDP player. And I think he had a shoulder injury last year, but he should be fully healed from that. And that was one of his worst seasons as a pro. Let's be honest about it. But he's worth a flyer to grab and see if he's got anything left in the tank. Playing time's not going to be an issue in Baltimore as they're really needing depth at edge position. So once again, he broke his neck back in 2019, like Kurt Angle, and came back and had 8.5 sacks in 10 games with Tampa Bay. This guy can still rush the passer. He's going to be in a good situation. They're going to be able to get some more pressure because he's on the roster. So once again, probably worth the flyer if you're needing a little bit of edge help on your IDP rosters. Grab him before the first week blow-up might occur. They are playing the Patriots, which, in history hasn't been the best at giving up sacks, but this year their offensive line does seem a little suspect, so there's going to be some opportunity week one for this guy. Once again, though, at least get him on your roster, maybe not start him, and see what you have with him. Definitely worth that. And speaking of free agents to pick up, we'll go ahead and dive right into that. Alex Wright for Cleveland. This is a third-round rookie defensive end. And he's been pretty quiet with week 2. He only had, I think, like a pass defense. But there's the opportunity to grab him because Jadeveon Clowney is reported to be in a walking boot this week after rolling his ankle in the third quarter. And if he's missing time, either Alex Wright or Chase Winovich are going to see an uptick, probably both, in their usage. And, it's probably a flyer in some of your deeper leagues, your dynasty leagues, to grab a guy like this. But he's a better addition than some other people out there. Like I said, especially for Dynasty. And if he plays well going forward, then they're not going to really probably, Clowney's on a one-year deal. They'll keep him in the rotation a lot heavier. And he showed really well in preseason. So there's the opportunity that this guy could be a diamond in the rough at this point in time. Another guy, if he hasn't been picked up yet, Frankie Louvu, Carolina linebacker. 10 solo tackles, 4 for loss and a pass defended. And he wasn't a full-time defender for the Panthers on Sunday. He was close, and he certainly had a lot of fantasy output this week. But once again, if he's still on the waiver wires, go ahead and pick him up. He is a guy that we'll talk about here in a little bit as well. Once again, he didn't play 100% of the snaps this week, but he did in week 1. And to me, Shaq Thompson is a thing of the past, and Frankie might be the guy that, let's just be honest. Frankie's telling Shaq to relax, and he's going to go ahead and take care of business on the field. Caden Stern, Denver safety. Now, this guy is basically a person of opportunity with Justin Simmons having a quad injury, and he's out for the year. Second-year safety, Caden Stearns from Texas, has the opportunity to have a really nice role in that secondary for Denver this year and going forward. And like I said, he's off to a good start already. His first start with Simmons out, he had 5 solo tackles and assists, so he isn't afraid of making the plays. It looks like he's capable. He's another guy, once again, especially in dynasty leagues, he might be the person that they're going to maintain and move forward past this year as well. So I kind of said I was going to talk a little bit about Frankie Louvu a little bit more. One thing that I went back and we were looking at that's quite interesting is when we start looking at all of the what we call full-time linebackers. So this is, that they're playing pretty much more than 95% of your defensive snaps. And we'll go through, I'm just going to literally run off a name, so get your pen and paper out. If you're listening to it on the road, pull over, make sure that these guys are not on your waiver wire because, once again, opportunity breeds success when it comes to defense. So, on your mark, get set, go. Miami, Jerome Baker. Atlanta, Mykal Walker. Baltimore, Patrick Queen. Roquan Smith. For Chicago, Nicholas Morrow for Chicago. Cincinnati is Logan Wilson. Dallas, Micah Parsons. Green Bay, Devondre Campbell. Houston's Christian Kirksey. Houston's Kamu Grugier-Hill. Indianapolis Colts, Bobby Okereke, as well as Indianapolis' Zaire Franklin. Jacksonville's Foyesei Olokin. Bobby Wagner for the Rams. Minnesota's Eric Kendricks. New Orleans' Demario Davis. New York Giants, Tay Crowder. New York Jets, C.J. Mosley. Phillies, T.J. Edwards. Seattle, Jordan Brooks. San Francisco, Fred Warner. San Francisco, Dre Greenlaw. Tampa Bay, Levante David and Devin White. Tennessee's David Long. Buffalo's Tremaine Edmonds. Atlanta's Rashawn Evans. Minnesota, Jordan Hicks. Denver, Alex Singleton. Arizona, Xavier Collins. Now, you might have thought most of those were in alphabetical order, and at the end it got a little wonky. After Devin White for Tampa Bay, that was all the people that played 100% of their defensive snaps. Past that, it was down to 99%. Xavier Collins was the lowest at 96%. So still, a ton of snaps to go around for these guys. The most of which were by Christian Kirksey and Kamu Grugier-Hill. They both played 92 snaps in the game against Indianapolis. And then Patrick Queen played 84 for Baltimore. The Indianapolis game obviously went to overtime, so that tells you at least a little bit of something there. That being said, these are the kind of guys with opportunity. You need to be watching snap counts. You need to see how often they're on the field. Perfect example of this, not linebacker driven, but perfect example of it is Kyle Hamilton for Baltimore, an up-and-coming safety that everybody expecting, especially me. I was very, very high, still am very, very high on him, that he'd come out of the gate as a, day one starter. Well, he's only playing 50% of the snaps right now, so that is something that you have to know. Like, he's not necessarily underperforming, but the way that they're using him in coverages and things like that is not 100% of the time on the field. And part of that is what I was talking about earlier. Patrick Queen has played 100% of the snaps. Now, after this last week with the Dolphins, where he got absolutely torched across the middle a few times and looked like he was spinning in circles, they might rethink that philosophy. Maybe, maybe not. But keeping an eye on snap percentages is imperative to making sure that these guys are on your team. Once again, some of those guys are like, well, duh, Seth, absolutely they're on somebody's roster. But there's some that might not be necessarily on somebody's roster. Is David Long on everybody's roster? TJ Edwards, people are still in Philly, not sure if he's the guy because of Nakobe Dean. He might not be on rosters. Tay Crowder still because of the Blake Martinez thing. He might have still been out there. Zaire Franklin, definitely not, probably because that's more of the Shaq Leonard issue that he's not playing right now, so that has given him the opportunity, but they didn't split that work up. That's what that tells me too. They didn't split it up. They gave it to one person, the entire defense, so that gives you at least a little bit of an option to pivot to until the injury, until Shaq comes back from the injury. The opportunities are there, and it's good to be aware of what type of linebackers you're looking for. These are basically, you want to avoid the off-ball linebackers. You want to make sure that you go for the full-time linebackers, which that means that they're playing 95% or more of the snaps. So that's a list of people. Take a look at it. See who is out there. See who you might have the opportunity of grabbing if you are a Shaq Leonard owner, or if you're an owner of, some maybe even Shaq Thompson, where you thought he might be the guy in Carolina this year, and now it's not so much, he's not giving you the points that you need. Go and look and find some of these guys, or trade for some of them that people might think, well, they're okay. Well, they might have had a down week, but the opportunity is what you have to go after with defense. So now we're going to get into the bread and butter of what I really wanted to talk about this week. Once again, I apologize for my voice. It is quite raspy. It's straining for me to talk, but I wanted to make sure that we went through all these things. So individual defensive player leagues, IDP leagues, I think calls for a defense-ready condition conversation. What the hell's that? Oh, we're talking about DEFCON. Yeah. DEFCON 5 tells you that there's not much to worry about, while DEFCON 1 signals that the outbreak of a global annihilation. Am I overreacting a bit? Yes. But let's go ahead and dive in. I've got 3 names that we're going to have conversations about this week. First of which is Carl Lawson, defensive end for the New York Jets. This last week, 2 solo tackles, 2 assisted tackles to start the year, paired with a half sack. So that's in 2 weeks. Lawson is coming back from a torn Achilles. We're all aware of that, and he's off to what I would call a pretty slow start. The big thing with Achilles injuries, we've seen it with running backs, is that it's known to cause a loss in overall burst, and in many cases, that never comes back. So there is enough concern to really have this conversation. And with that in mind, I still think it's too early to tell with Lawson whether or not that burst is missing or whether it is just game strip kind of situation. And I say that because the game strip with him, they've been basically behind in the entirety of the games that they played. They've won 1 game at the end, and that's the only time that they've basically been in the lead this entire season. I said the first 2 games, his snap percentages were at 51% and 58% respectively. So they're kind of easing him back in. He's not playing 100% of the snaps on defense, and he is somewhere in that kind of don't start him but don't drop him kind of area right now. So what is his DEFCON? DEFCON 4. I'm not too concerned about it, but we need to make sure that we're doing fine and that he recovers from this injury properly. Once again, he's out there at the beginning of the season, so that's a good sign. We just got to see when they get in some better situations where they're in the lead and he can pin his ears back if we're going to see what we thought we were going to get out of Carl Lawson when he came to the Jets last year that we never really got to see. Next one up on the list, Fred Warner, linebacker for the 49ers. What is going on with Fred Warner? 2 games in. He's got 5 solo tackles and 4 assisted tackles. That is combined. That is his entire stat line. He averaged those numbers a game last year, so he's cut his production in half. Now, I do want to remind people that Warner missed OTAs this season because he was still recovering from an ankle injury from last year's postseason run. And it's not just Warner that's suffering, but Al-Shaair also has been dreadful for IDP leagues. Dre Greenlaw on that team has been the only guy on the linebacker aspect that has been startable, really, at this point in the season. So what's going on? Well, the first game was played in an absolute monsoon, and the second one was a blowout win where the Seahawks really didn't run the ball at the end of the game because they were trying to catch up to an extent. So that being said, I expect Warner to bounce back from this start. It might be a great time to go to the Warner owner and try to buy low. He might be concerned with Shaair and Dre Greenlaw there that there's not enough to go around. There has been in the past, and I think that there still will be. So the opportunity to get a great stud linebacker at a cheap price might be Warner. Current state, DEFCON 5. Not concerned. We're hunky-dory. He's going to turn it around. He's a stud. He's an all-star type player. That's what they do. My third and final player that we're going to talk about today is Isaiah Simmons, linebacker for the Arizona Cardinals. Former 8th overall pick. In his 2 weeks so far, he has 5 total tackles. His week 2 game, played 15 snaps. Went from week 1 playing 87% of the snaps to 15% of the snaps in week 2. Panic button engaged. Either the Cardinals do not know how to use him and haven't really been able to use him in 3 years, or his talent has not translated to the NFL at all. which is really sad to see because this guy is one of those guys that coming out of college I really liked. He had so much raw athleticism. He kind of was that safety linebacker kind of hybrid player, and the way he's performed has just been so you hate to see it. So he's currently at a DEFCON 2 for me. If he fails to produce again this week, I mean, you might as well call him nuclear waste at that point in time because, I mean, you can't use this guy. It's the point where this high-profile, high-draft capital guy might be completely unusable when it comes to IDP leagues. I mean, 5 tackles in 2 weeks, you're not getting anything out of this guy. You're not getting the pass rush. You're not getting the passes defended in coverage. You're just not getting any of those spike plays, interceptions, any of that really at this point. And so at some point we have to cut bait or try to trade him, add him in to try to boost up, maybe do something with a Fred Warner, a little bit older linebacker, but still very, very good. Maybe somebody else is willing to take the chance on Isaiah Simmons, knowing the name value still and feeling like he's great, even though he physically has just not been there as far as IDP goes. So once again, that is my DEFCON takes on a couple guys. We're going to keep doing that throughout the year, kind of to get a feel for how people are going, what our concern levels are for them. But that being said, it's going on to week 3. This last week, I felt like defense was a little bit softer than opening weekend. I think we had a lot of massive, big-time sack numbers. Things kind of came back down, and offenses kind of outperformed a little bit more. Unless your name's Marcus Williams, because he just had another stellar day, and then Minka had another interception. So the guys are doing what the guys do. But the fact of the matter is that keep an eye on snap counts. Keep an eye on injuries. Make sure that that list of teams that were playing 100% of these linebackers, if somebody gets injured, make sure that you're the first one to grab the backup. If you got an extra spot before the game start, grab the backup ahead of time in case somebody does get hurt. That'll save you some fab. But in the meantime, be aware, be excited, and remember that defense wins fantasy. We'll see you guys next week.
This podcast has been presented by the Fantasyholics Podcast Network.